Let's now start building our BMI calculator app. So let's understand some concept first before we go to the programming in Android Studio. So let's have a look at this thing over here. So for every app that we're going to develop for this course, we're going to follow a so-called Model View Controller, or MVC acronym. Okay, so it's called MVC pattern that we are going to follow for every app that we're going to build. And so there are three components for this pattern here: model, view, and controller. And for this tutorial series, we're going to look at the view first. So the view, the way to understand this is there are two purposes in general. There might be more as we go along the course, but for now, for this particular tutorial, you can think of there are two things that this view component is going to achieve. First of all, it's going to provide an opportunity for the user to enter inputs. For example, if you want to calculate the BMI, the body mass index for a person, you have to enter possibly three inputs. First, the name of the user, and second, the weights of the user, and third, the height of the user. The three inputs you must provide somewhere in your on your screen, somewhere for the user to enter these values. And the second purpose is to display the outputs. Let's say if I enter Jackie as a name, and then maybe let's say 70 kilograms for the weight, and also 170 centimeters for the heights, and then it's going to display certain output to say Jackie has BMI, etc., according to the formula for calculation. So that's kind of the idea for view. However, you should notice that for the view over here, the number one thing you should really remember, the view here only provides a platform or mechanism for you to enter and display. However, how you do the computation is outside the responsibility for the view. Okay, so let me just put it here. So now, how the computation is done is outside the responsibility of these components. This component here. So the next question is, so which component should be responsible for how the computation should be done? It is the model components, which we will focus later. Okay, so now one more thing to notice. So where should we actually define our design for the view, which is the GUI, graphical user interface? Let me just mention one more thing. So here, view here, you can think of it's a graphical user interface. Graphical user interface. Also, there's a well-known acronym for that, which is GUI. Okay, the view. And how can we define the GUI for our app in this case? And you have to look for the file that ends with the XML. In the previous video, we actually briefly show you how you can explore the project structure in the Android Studio. And one of the file under the layout package is has the XML extension. That's the file we're going to modify. But remember, for that file there, you can have two views to swap between, either the design or the text. So we'll go there and then show you how you can do it. Okay. So now before we let me just show you very quickly on Android Studio where you can find this file, and then I will just jot down some ideas how you can do the design, and then we'll try to do the programming part to put our design into practice. Okay, now make sure you have your VirtualBox ready, and then start your virtual machine, and then let's go to the Android Studio. So go to Applications, Programming, and Android Studio, and then open a project that we developed from the previous tutorial videos. Okay, it simply remembers our last loaded project, so it's just going to do that. And remember, try not to hit the updates prompt over here, because we want to be staying in the same version of the Android Studio as was used in the lab session. Okay, you can just close that. Okay, so now this is what we have over here. So let's now, if you hit on project over here, and then you can hit on project here, and then expand app, and then expand resources, and then expand layout. And then over here, you can see the activity bmi.xml. Okay, you can see that over here again. You can see around the bottom over here. So we got two possible views for us. Okay, so we can have, let me just close that. Okay, we have either design, we have text, either way. Okay, either design or text. So now if you go to design, that's more like the GUI view of your it's more like the graphical view of your GUI design. If you go to the text, that's kind of the structure for the XML. We'll explain later how you can understand this XML file. Okay, not now, but later. Okay, so now let's go back to design over here. Let's now try to think about, before we try to do anything here, let's try to just jot down on the paper how we're going to do it. And you can see that there are many GUI components that you can use. For this tutorial, we are only going to show you three very commonly used GUI components. Okay, we'll see what they are. Okay, let's switch back to the paper over here. So what are the GUI components that's available? Okay, so let's put GUI components. Okay, so now we have basically three things. So the first thing is called text view. And the second thing is called edit text. And the third thing is called button. Okay, so these are the three GUI components that we're going to use for this particular tutorial. But for later example apps, we're going to have you try more. Okay, but you can always explore new components as you wish. Okay, so now, what about the text view? What can be its purpose? So this one here is going to be very straightforward. You can do some display. You can display either instructions or answers. Okay, you can just write this down here, and then we explain what can be the difference between instructions versus answers. Okay, either instructions or answers. Okay, and the second one, edit text. This one here is for the it's going to be prompt the user for inputs. Okay, for inputs. And let me put it this way. Okay, let's prompt the inputs for computation. Because eventually the view is going to pass. Somehow whatever you enter in the view components is going to be passed for computation, and the computation is going to be done on the model side. So now prompt the input for computation. In this case, as mentioned before, it's going to be the name, the weights, and the heights. Okay, prompt the inputs from computation. And then lastly, over here for button here, is going to be command, which means assuming that all the inputs have been entered. So now we can actually, if the user hit on this particular button here, that means the user command the app to actually do the computation, which is to calculate the BMI according to the weights, height, and name that have been entered. Command for starting a computation. Okay, so these are the three things that we're going to have. Okay, let's now very quickly sketch our design. And then in later videos, we're going to put it back to the Android Studio. Okay, but it's always good to think about your design on the paper before you do realize it in the programming environments. The design of your GUI for the BMI app. Okay, let's see how we can do that. Okay, so this is our design over here. Okay, how can we design that? And this is definitely the practice you should do every time when you're assigned some app to develop. You should always think about what should be your judgment to be the best design for the user, for the usability for the user. Okay. Okay, so now let's say this area over here is your mobile screen. Okay, and now let's just make it simple. So we got text view, we got edit text, and we got button. Let's just have different color over here just for illustration. Let's say I'm gonna have the text view being blue, and then I'm gonna have, let's say, the edit text being green, okay, and I'm going to have the button being pink over here, okay, and we can just use the color over here to see how we can do it, okay. So now what we will do is, first of all, let's say we want the user to actually enter name, weight, and height in this kind of sequence from top to bottom. Okay, so now let's say, first of all, we have to give them some instruction about what they should enter. Okay, so now let's say whenever we want to display instructions, we can use a text view. So we can have a text view over here, and then over here I can just say this is the name that the user has to enter. And then immediately below that, we're going to have a edit text. So this is the edit text box that is going to take the input for the name. Okay, and similarly, we're going to have another instruction for the second input, which is going to be the weights. And then we're going to have below that another edit text for entering the weights, which should be a number. Okay, and then we have another one over here, another instruction here, which is going to be the heights. And then below that, we're going to have another edit text for us to enter the for the user to enter the heights. Okay, if you want, you can even put more instruction over here. You can say, for the weights, you should really enter a number that represent your weight in kilograms. And over here, the height should be, for example, in meters or centimeters, doesn't matter. Okay, let's say meters for this particular tutorial. And then we should have also a way for the user to say, once they are sure they have entered all the three inputs, they can hit the button to say, now start the computation. Okay, we can simply just put the button here. Let's say over here. So there's a button. We can also put some text over there. Okay, I can say compute BMI. Okay, I'm running out of space, but I can imagine that we are going to have also. So let's say that let's say we have entered the three inputs over here, and then we actually hit the button to say, well, I want to compute a BMI. So there's got to be a way to display the output. That's exactly the second purpose for the text view, which is to display the output or the answers. And now we must have another text view over here. Let's imagine this. I'll just put it here like that. You can either put it to the right of the compute BMI button or below that. And then this thing over here is going to display the answer. Okay, this one is going to be answer. And the answer is going to be with respect to the three inputs that we have. Okay, so that's kind of the design on the paper. And we're going to see how you can put each of these GUI components into Android Studio